We're going to be talking now about step up and step down training, which is a very important primary lesson. It's the first basic command.
Yes.
And it's a vital command, and it has to be very matter of fact.
Absolutely. There's no way around it. It is important starting from the fourth stage when the birds are actually have enough motricity and confidence to step up and down. Of course, it's going to be on our hands at that point, and with both our hands, and we're going to be holding closer to the hawk because the birds are just starting to get that confidence and perching off the hawk onto a stable perch. We're going to be doing this on a daily basis because we're going to be weighing them now on a scale perch.
Right. And this is the only way that they should be coming out of the cage.
Only way that they should be coming out of our cage. That's our opinion, of course.
Yes.
If other people have great success with fledglings that start to get a little bit more challenging, we fear that allowing birds to come out of their fledgling cage and their day cage on their own to spend time playing on top of their cage, and then they don't want to listen anymore and people have difficulty bringing them back in. It's a little bit, I find, like crossing the road with a child. If there's a necessity and it must be done now, it's matter of fact. The child needs to hold the parent's hand.
Right.
Well, this is a little bit our philosophy as to the reason why they need to step up to come out of their cage.
Right. And for those birds who are a little ornery,
yes,
and do not want to cooperate, they should be taken in a towel and put on the floor.
Absolutely. That's what we would do with, let's say, a challenging macaw. When they reach about 11 weeks of age, they start testing us a little bit, and they might not be as obedient, and they may not wish to step up, and it's not, I'm not talking about a fledgling that's not doing well, or a bird that's not displaying normal healthy positions or activity. Talking about a bird that just doesn't want to do it your way. And I think it's very important at that point that we make an effort to actually bring down that kind of training to the floor.
Yes.
That's where we're going to take out our educational mattress, and we're going to make the bird step up on a perch and encourage him with play, of course. All positive reinforcement, but of course never food.
Josie, you mentioned that we don't give food as a reward. Now this is important because the birds are weaning, and we don't give this throughout the early parrot educational stages.
Exactly.
So there have to be other positive reinforcements that we can give, and one would be just facial expression, vocal praise as well.
We always talk about it being a positive reinforcement, but then it's also a very respectful way of addressing attention to our bird and clearly indicated to the bird what we want to achieve. I would not step onto somebody's hand or finger if the person wasn't looking at me. Exactly. I would be afraid that maybe that perched finger won't be a very stable one to fall onto or to hold on to. So it's very important that when we're asking the bird with this verbal command, if you wish, to politely step up onto our hand, it's a matter of fact communication. It's a verbal communication for me more than a command. There's no way around it. This is what we want to achieve, but very important that we have a very positive, facial, not ambiguous look in our face. This is what we want to do. This is where we're guiding our bird, for sure. Now there's a few other things. We mentioned the importance of having a stable perch and looking at the bird.
Yes.
It's very important that if I ask the bird to step up onto my finger perch, and I'm looking at you and talking to you at the same time, he's of course is not going to find this very reliable. Right. So he's probably going to try and gauge my finger and make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. So then he might be tempted to bite it a little bit. It's not something that we wish to do, is remove it, because then the bird's going to think that this hand that we're presenting is always very unreliable.
Right.
So it's very important that it's a stable one.
It's stable. And it's also, as we see, it is a finger, it's not a hand or an arm. Or
we see a lot of mistakes with new caretakers that hold their birds often on their hand, and especially often higher up on their arm. Definitely the least reliable place to hold a bird. And when these birds are young, they're still have their flight feathers completely intact, and they may keep them for a while. And so holding them on our fingers is more practical, and it's a safer method as well, because we're making sure that the bird, if he wants to fly away, he's not feeling entrapped, but then we're making sure that our thumbs can come in and guide him back to stay on our hands. If we have the bird on our arm as well, what's going to happen is it's way too big. for even a large macaw. This is way too big for a perch.
They won't be secure.
They won't be secure, and then people don't realize they're wearing a wool shirt.
Right.
The bird's nails might get entrapped. They might start biting you. Definitely not on the shoulder either. The birds are learning the rules of conduct, and to allow these young fledglings to spend time on your shoulder at all times especially would not be advisable for sure, especially not for the larger species, because that can be very dangerous as well. The birds are just learning to be comfortable perching onto us, and we're not a very reliable perch for sure.
So along with stepping up onto the finger, it's a really good idea to desensitize the fledgling to stepping up onto a perch.
Very important. This may be a life-saving training that will allow any caretaker in a household or someone that's not part of that household to come in and safely remove a bird from his cage should there be a fire or an emergency evacuation.
Right.
Especially if this bird will be in a pet store. Several caretakers might not necessarily know every individual and know their capacities or their training stages or their abilities. So this is very important. Now, very, very important to specify, Suzanne, that we don't use this perch and present it to the bird when the bird is in his weaning cage.
No.
No. We usually play with these wooden dowels when the birds are on the floor with all the other accessories that we use when we're doing desensitization. And we can even use two and allow the birds to comfortably, when they're on the floor, to gradually start doing some laddering skills. Laddering has been proposed with controversy by certain trainers, but if you're doing it very ethically and you're not allowing the birds to get exhausted and you're just showing them how challenging and fun it can be to get from a lower point to a higher point, and you're guiding them with vocal praise and encouragement, then I think it can be a very fun activity. And then the bird is not threatened by someone approaching the cage.
Right. Another thing that's important to note is that this is an older fledgling,
Yes.
stage 5. You wouldn't be using a perch such as this for a younger fledgling.
No. It's going to be slippery.
Exactly.
And at that earlier stages, the birds are usually more comfortable and more reliable to perch on something that is more like a cotton perch or a natural branch. So definitely this is for the older stage, but you would want to introduce it younger.
Yes.
As we said before, when they're desensitizing to different objects.
Right.
For sure.
It can also be done with a plastic perch.
Can be done with a plastic perch as well. And very important, Suzanne, you mentioned prior that we always need to make sure that the perches that we're using or the accessories are suitable for the bird and the species. It's very important that we evaluate the size of the perch.
As we note here, the bird has a grip of 3/4 of the way around the perch.
Yes. And this is very important because if it's too big, he's going to slip off. And if it's too small, he's going to want to go onto your finger or hand because he wants something a little bigger. So this is very, very important that we choose the right size, and that's why most breeders would have several sizes of them available.